Super Rugby Power Rankings, folks, round number 14. We are 1 week away from knowing how the final 8 are going to line up. Remember, it's 2/3 that go through in Super Rugby. And I'll admit, with the kind of cut-off there at 8, it's been kind of more interesting to look at the bottom of the table than the top at the moment. Maybe that's kind of by design, but we are at the crunch end. And interestingly this week, quite a few teams managed to keep themselves alive with narrow wins. But anyway, we'll go through them. You guys can let us know your thoughts. Sadly for you, Moana, Pasifika, I am hanging your jersey up there, but you didn't quite get a win. You were one conversion away from getting a win over the Fijian Drua. After being down by like 20 points, you seemed dead and buried. You had a huge comeback and almost got it done, but for a missed conversion, you would have had your first win of the season. But no, now you're none from 13. Staring down the barrel of a winless season, much like Zebre did in the URC. It's not a record you want to have, but that's what it's looking like. It's kind of reminiscent of that game against the Blues, although that game they were ahead and conceded at the death. This game they were behind and almost managed to chase it down, but it's another week where you feel like, man, they probably could have got it done. So even if they'd won both those games, they'd be staring at a record of 2-11, which wouldn't be much better than their none from 13, but it would just look a bit nicer, wouldn't it? But yeah. Good effort, man. Like, at this point of the season, you wouldn't have blamed the guys for, having their heads down and whatnot, but they gave some fight for the jersey, so credit to them for that. 11th spot is still the Rebels, despite their big win over the Force. And that was absolutely a must-win game. If the Rebels had lost that, they were certainly dead and buried. And that's kind of a direct rival for that 8th or 7th spot, playoff spot. And kind of, there's always a bit of feeling between the Force and the Rebels, but the Rebels got it done. Big win. The Force took an early lead, but never really looked like winning that one, man. The Rebels were absolutely dominant. And that win means they are still in 11th spot, which is the same as the power rankings, but they're on 21 points. The Highlanders are on 23, so they are not dead and buried, the Rebels, with one round to go. However, they do have an away trip to Canberra. So they may have just been delaying the inevitable, but still they played some good rugby, and it makes that last round a little bit tastier for them. The Reds, I feel for the Reds, because you guys could have got it done up against the Landers. Since that game against the Chiefs, it's a couple of brutal losses now for the Reds. So down 2 spots in the power rankings. The first 2 teams haven't changed, but they're down 2. Now they are 7th on the actual table. So the power rankings are not doing them anywhere near the credit the table's got them. They're in the playoffs on the table, but their recent record is not great. But that Chiefs result was obviously a bright spot, so you can hang on to that one. They are 24th, so in 7th, far from secure in their spot in the playoffs, and an away game in Fiji to round things off. So no guarantees. If Moana Pasifika can push the Drua that close, then maybe the Reds can get a win and secure their playoff spot. But as I said, no guarantees. They need some points for sure. Speaking of the Drua, that's the team they'll be playing. They will be looking to get a win over the Reds and maybe sneak into the playoffs, because they are like the Rebels. They are sitting on 21 points with that so narrow win over Moana Pasifika. If they had lost that one, they were dead and buried. But they managed to, I want to say, hang on. They didn't really hang on. They just didn't get the result snatched away when Leofano missed that conversion. So the Drua, when they were up by, 20 points, they should have really gone on with that one. But yeah, it's a little bit concerning with how they kind of went off the boil and got dominated up front by Moana Pasifika. But it's a win. So they're up a spot, believe it or not. With that win. So yeah, well done to the Drua for keeping their season alive as well. Them and the Reds, that's going to be maybe a direct, who finishes in the playoffs and who misses out. Depends on how the results go. But yeah, big game, that one. That's pretty much must-watch viewing for next week. 8th spot is the Force. Couldn't back up a couple of home wins with an away result against the Rebels as well. Force, man, you're frustrating. That's why you needed to win. Come on. You've had these 2 home wins. You're in the playoffs. You go into a Melbourne Rebels team who are below you on the log. You go in and get a win, and you're pretty much going to be, not 100% secure, but they would have been on 26 points. So they would have been well into the playoffs, but no. They got absolutely hammered. They didn't look like they wanted it. which is bizarre. I'm not sure if they just collapsed under the pressure or the Rebels just wanted it more. It's a bit of a cliche, that one. The Rebels just played some smart rugby, didn't they? So, yeah, really, really disappointing for the Force One. They have fallen out of the 8. They are 9th on 22 points, so still in with a chance. They are back at home, which is their fortress, but they're playing the Chiefs. So you wouldn't bank on the Force making the 8. Likewise, the Rebels away to the Brumbies. You'd be looking more like the Reds drew a result to get one. But a lot of these bottom teams have got hard games in their final round, so you never know. The Highlanders. Highlanders are in 7th with their win. Lucky as it was, but man, it's a win. They skin of their teeth beat the Reds. They're into the 8. They're on 23 points. So there are only 2 points of teams who are several spots below them. But they're in the 8. So if the teams below them all lose, if the Force lose, if the Drua lose, and if the Rebels lose, then I don't think the Highlanders need to worry too much. They got the Blues away from home, which looks like a tough ask. But again, no tougher than the Force home to the Chiefs or the Rebels going away to the Brumbies. So there's some tough games to be had, as I mentioned. But you'd rather be in the 8 than not. So the Highlanders still in with a sniff. 6th spot is the Canes. I mean, they're a better record on the table, aren't they? But their recent results are just pretty bad. They've lost, what was it, one of their last 4 against Moana Pasifika as well. I mean, they gave them a hiding, but geez, just not getting the jobs done. What can I say? There's some big results. Played the Blues. They found Mark Talia in unbelievable form. And you can't blame them too much for that, but if you're looking at the Hurricanes as a title contender the last few weeks, I mean, even losing to the Drua away, games when they needed to step up, they haven't quite got it done yet. I mean, I still reckon there'll be a chance. They could beat anyone on their day, but a little bit frustrating. The Tars, I think we saw a bit of the difference between the Tars and the top sides. I mean, the Tars have been in good form. I think they were on a 4-game winning run, so their recent record is better than the Canes. Maybe they haven't been playing the same caliber of teams, but their recent record is better. So they go to Christchurch and they get hammered. So there's certainly a big difference between those top sides. I mean, right now, realistically, if you were to call 2 teams for final, you'd probably say Chiefs, Crusaders, wouldn't you? But yeah, on their day, there's certainly a few teams who could threaten. But for the Tars, they got beaten pretty handily away in Christchurch. No shame in that, but they were in the lead for a very short time. But yeah, ultimately, they didn't threaten to win that game. The Brumbies are in 4th, another loss. Played the Chiefs, so it was a top of the table battle, which, as I said, I was kind of less interested in than the bottom teams because of that playoff conversation. But still, it's a big game. 2 top teams. The Brumbies, they score a couple of late tries to make the scoreboard look a little, more even, but ultimately they got pretty well beaten, didn't they? So, yeah, despite being the best Aussie team, 9-4, super record, they still look to be a cut below the top 2 teams, don't they? And I would include my Blues in that conversation. Like the Blues, they got the win over the Hurricanes. Mark Talia, like I mentioned, was on fire. 4 tries. Certainly some of them were just insane ones. But the Blues still look a cut below these top 2 teams. That's just my feeling on it. But knockout rugby, funny things can happen. The Crusaders are in 2nd on the power rankings, and yeah, they look the business. Big win over the Tars. Couple of injury concerns for them, so not the right time of the season to be having guys go down injured, but we'll see what the kind of long-term prognosis is. And then the Chiefs in 1st with that win away in Canberra. Really impressive. The Chiefs are just absolutely looking the business. So as much as we will kind of celebrate whoever gets into that 8th spot, you're essentially booking yourself a trip to Hamilton because the Chiefs have secured top spot. I know what kind of prize that is. I mean, you're still alive for another week, but geez, going to Hamilton right now looks like a pretty tough ask. But anyway, those are the power rankings for this week. Top teams are pretty much all similar. Bit of shuffling around at the bottom, but yeah, you guys let us know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.